Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and thanks so much for coming back. Yes. But for everyone out there who is new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer, soda, water, coffee, tea in the fridge. Cheers. It's a Sunday. And we're sticking to that bottled goodness.
Can't beat it.
No way. So I am sitting here with my friend, someone who I have known for over a decade.
I think longer than you.
Probably, over a decade.
That implies longer, yeah. Okay.
But we have never actually really sat down and hung out and talked outside of some chaotic live show environment. Make some noise for my friend, Jordan of The Breathing Process.
I was making a ring.
I'll pipe in we'll pipe in the fake stuff like the backtracks.
Think that I'm okay. Yeah.
So what is cooking?
Not too much. We just got back from Toledo Death Fest yesterday, which was pretty rad. It
nice.
Was, with jungle rot and convalescence and stuff. It was fun. We had the absolute worst sound guy I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Okay.
And I
for a death metal fest.
For anything.
Okay.
I don't know if he could mic one person to call over the intercom at McDonald's to make French fries. It was like so you've seen our setup a little. We run a lot of things live, but we have it set up so efficiently that the only thing we need from any sound guy any given day is microphone cables.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Yes.
I don't even need your opinion on any of this. Just give me 3 microphone cables, or 4 technically. And so we're up there and the changeover between bands, because it was 2 stages. So when one band ends, 5 minutes after that, the next one starts. So we had a 40-minute changeover time, which is great for us because we have a lot of things to set up. So we were ready to roll, ready to line check in 20 minutes. He disappeared for 15 minutes. Then he comes back and he's like, "All right, I'm ready to go." And we're looking around are you gonna mic the drums or my guitar cab? Maybe. So then he comes up and looks at it he's it's like a real head scratcher for him, and he's like, "I don't think I have enough mic lines." And I'm like, "For the drums?" Because that's pretty standard practice at most venues. You mic the drums, unless it's a really small,
especially
coffee
for
shop
a metal show.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big, it's a 1,000 cap venue, I think, if not more.
Weird
that the sound, they should have the standard 16 at the least.
Sure.
He had 8, I think, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 9. I don't know. But it was just I had to tell him 3 separate times to mic our drum kit and my guitar cab, because he just didn't feel like it needed. Not that, because some venues you don't necessarily need to mic the cabs, but this one you need to mic the cabs. And he mic'd one of them. He mic'd one cab, and he gave us the line from the kick mic for our kick trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And he plugged a line into the DI box for the keyboard.
Cool.
So that's all he felt like we needed before he took his 20-minute break.
So this is a perfect segue into a question that I love to ask a lot of people, but I would love to ask you, because the Breathing Process has been an entity for a long time. As I've mentioned, we've known each other for over 10 years, and that whole time you've been a part of the Breathing Process.
That I have.
A lot of bullshit has happened for your band. Any band I've been in, bullshit happens in bands.
Sure. It's one of the perks.
You're still fucking doing it. You're still dealing with ding-dongs that can't fucking mic a kick drum. Why do you keep doing it? What is it that's driving you to keep dealing with this nonsense? Do you just love metal that much? What is it?
I love just masochism, I think is what it is. Yeah. If you ever really want to have a miserable existence, play in a band for a while, and that's good for you. No, to me, playing music, writing music, performing is like, it's always been kind of therapy for me. I think it's like that for most people who play music. You know, it's your avenue to escape your otherwise mundane existence, working a 9 to 5 or whatever it is that you do that isn't fun but is required for kind of survival. You know, like it's really, at the end of the day, it's like the most expensive hobby you could possibly get into, but it's extremely fulfilling. And I've never really found anything else that kind of fills the same space, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I've always just done it. Like I don't know if I guess I have thought about like not doing it anymore, but anytime I get like that, I'm just like, well, what the hell else am I going to do? Like,
sure.
You know, am I going to start collecting like, you know, baseball cards or something? Like that? Actually, that was a bad example. No, I'm old. People used to collect baseball cards. No one does that anymore. But
they collect Pokemon cards.
Yeah, yeah, that would have been a better example. You know, like it's just it's who I am, and I think any musician who's really serious about it, regardless of, you know, what level you reach with music, like that's at the end of the day, that's what it means to you. It's your outlet for whatever.
I got you, dude.
It's your outlet.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that is, you know, really shitty about being in a band is that you have these passions and this drive to do all of this stuff, right? And that's why you keep doing what you're doing. But there's so much other stuff that I feel like neither of us give a fuck about. Like needing to like promote and schmooze and wine and dine fucking ding dongs that you don't fucking care about, so that try to get them to somewhat give a shit about your band when like all you fucking want to do is show up and play.
Yeah.
But in order to like get onto some stages or get certain opportunities, like you really gotta like question, or like at least I've found that like I gotta like tap into a side of myself, like a person that doesn't actually exist in me. I gotta try to become like somebody else to like hype myself up, especially in this like underground metal community. And like, what has it been like for you over the years? Because you seem like a pretty calm, collected guy. Like, you know, you're on stage, you play guitar, you look scary and angry, but outside of that, you probably just want to like, I want to keep to myself. I don't feel like dealing with a lot of bullshit. You seem like that kind of guy.
I very much am. Yeah, I don't like human beings.
So
that's really
like,
what it comes
but
down
yeah,
to.
again, like all of this back end stuff, it's so social, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to kind of, I mean, it's not, I don't know if I'd call it like force yourself to like just be a part of a scene as a whole, because you do enjoy it in a lot of aspects of it, but you definitely like for the self-marketing, like you've got to kind of, you know, talk to more people than you probably want to, or interact with. You have to send way more emails than you would like to in a day, and that
like,
sort of thing.
Yeah, not only do you got to like talk to people about yourself, but you have to be like, yo, like
constant
this is fucking
mode.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
And like, wow, it's like I'm sure you are very confident in the stuff that you put out, and I know you probably like it. I like my stuff. I have a hard time telling somebody you should listen to this because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like it just seems absurd to me to say that to somebody.
It's not always not enough of a point to make like,
yeah,
you know, everybody, because as the other side of it, it's like the consumer or promoter that you're trying to like kind of get in with, or labels or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, of course, to you, your music's awesome, and it took me a really long time to be able to like step outside myself and view my band for what it is. Because when we were first really like kind of coming up in like the MySpace era, you know, like I had no idea what I was doing. I was like 22, 23, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'm in a band, and oh, we're signed, and I'm on tour. Like but I had no idea how any of it worked. I was like, I just thought, you know, you get signed and then you're touring with Motley Crue after that. That was yeah. There was nothing in between. It was just, okay, we signed the contract. Where's my bus?
Sure,
you know,
cool.
And I kind of learned the hard way, and you know, definitely burned a couple bridges that I shouldn't have, just by, you know, not understanding that music is very much a business, at least to industry people. Like yes, obviously they care about music because there's plenty of industries that make money, that make a lot more money than music does. So they do care about music, but they also have to run their business and they have to operate. Like no one gets into any business to break even or to lose money.
The thing that's so weird about like this metal shit is it's a very youth-driven culture. So it's like regardless of what they like and regardless of what music you like that you're making, they're gonna go for whatever sells. So that's whatever the fucking kids like.
Exactly.
And neither of us are getting any younger. And while I'm like into like I respect like the newer generation of stuff, but I mean like even when like bands like a lot of like deathcore stuff was new at the time, like it wasn't my thing. Yeah. And then like I've had a hard time being in a metal band since because like we've been perpetually stuck in 2003 for the past fucking 12 years, but that's just what we like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like I'd rather just do something that I like and maybe one day it'll loop around and some people will like it. But for me, it's always been more of like I think it's really important to do something that you believe in instead of like trying to cater to like nothing. You don't want to be like the, pushing 40 and trying to cater to 20-year-olds. Like they're going to see right through that shit, And
it's like, it's weird because that's another thing that kind of took me just years to understand this. Like, while the younger audience is probably the majority of it, there's still a huge market like in the next kind of age group up where it's like mid-20s to like 40, where that's like the real, and it's like the music that I, at least for metal, like that I listen to most of the time is like older guys metal. Like they're not old bands, they're just like the scene for it tends to not be like kids, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to think of like a band that's a good example of that. That's new. Like there's this band, I think they're from England, called Conjurer.
Okay.
They're like kind of somewhere between hardcore and like doom in a sense. Like the doom and hardcore crowd tends to be like older than like the deathcore crowd or the metalcore crowd even. And there's a lot there's a lot of room in that age demographic that you can still like completely succeed in, and I think music will always do that. Like, the stuff that, like how old are you?
35.
Oh, me too. All right. 86, bud.
Boom.
Like the stuff that we grew up on, obviously, like usually you just like the stuff that you liked when you were a kid, but you still like the same shit. But there's new bands that come out that I'm still probably the target demographic for, even though they're not an old band. They're not even necessarily older people in the bands, But it still like appeals to someone like me who like, I don't necessarily like the same metal that an 18-year-old kid would. I do in a sense because I play it technically. Like I still play in a deathcore band, but like
I think I would call you guys like, oh, definitely. I don't know if I would put it in the deathcore realm. I think there's hints.
Thank you.
I think there's hints of it, for sure. But I think that it's just more. I don't know. It's chaos. I would just call the breathing process chaos.
That's a good description.
You know what I mean? It's like
more people thought of it like
symphonic chaos.
I think I'm gonna brand that from now on. Yeah, like so kind of what I was saying before, like when we were first kind of on our first run with the band, when deathcore was first really happening, and it was still very much like in its infancy. So to us, like we didn't think of ourselves as deathcore ever because it was still a new term even.
Sure.
And then once it started to catch on more, to me, we didn't sound anything like Suicide Silence or Whitechapel or anything like that. So when people called us a deathcore band, I was always like, how? Like, I don't get it. Like,
sure.
But we play like black metal-y chords and stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
but the longer time has gone on and I've like kind of observed that era as a whole, I get it. Like we were in the same scene. We're touring with the same bands. We're like, signed to a label that has like deathcore bands and stuff. So, you know, now I kind of get why, because we at the core of us, like that's what we are. We just have a very heavy black metal influence, and over the years, we've kind of slowly or gradually like swapped the positions. So right now, like everyone calls it blackened deathcore, and we're trying, especially with our new album, it's like we're more of a deathcore influenced black metal band than a black metal influenced deathcore band. Now,
yeah, I think,
you know?
I mean, like, I guess, like, the whole like deathcore term seems so silly to me, because I feel like, you know, it's like, okay, what are we talking about? Death metal and hardcore together, right? In some form. So like, what elements of hardcore are we talking about? Like, oh, like the grooves that you break into mixed with blast beats. Like, well, there's death metal bands that do that, or like slam bands, you know. So it's like, then what where do we put those bands? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
there's so many like funny,
was like if you listen to like old Dying Fetus, right? Like, is that like proto deathcore?
Fetus, like any,
but yeah, but I mean, like back in the day, nobody was like, they're a deathcore band. Has anybody ever called Dying Fetus a deathcore band?
Or like Suffocation's another good example of that. Like,
like they
had breakdowns, if you call it that,
just like heavy groove parts.
Yeah,
you know?
like that. So, and that's, I've seen a lot of like online debate as far as like who was the first deathcore band and stuff, and it's like if you really start going down the rabbit hole, like, you can find stuff like early Suffocation or Dying Fetus. Like, they've always been heavy bands. They've always had blast beats. Just they don't have the kind of hardcore style syncopated like repeating chug pattern breakdowns.
Sure, there's no like, I think like maybe some elements of what is like deathcore have like a surprising like pop influence in terms of like song structure, and I don't want to say predictability, but reliability.
Yeah,
like, you know that like this is the part when the breakdown's gonna come. This is the black. You get it. It's a reliable format as a listener.
Right. It's, I guess, I mean, in a weird way, you could look at it as simplified death metal.
Sure.
I guess like it's, and maybe that's where the hardcore influence comes in, because hardcore isn't like an extremely technical genre.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's not
mean,
like,
there are technical sounding hardcore bands for sure, but as a standard, like,
we need like a prog core scene to start up.
I feel like that exists because everything exists, but I can't think of a band that I would call progcore, because if it was, they would like, what would be the difference between that and like tech death? You know, it's like kind of the same.
It's so,
it seems like you could call it progressive death metal.
The genre thing is so weird, because like when Greywalker was first getting started, like we really got lumped. Like, people were like, oh, like it's metalcore. And like, I guess like I can kind of hear it in the way that maybe you could hear deathcore in some elements of, you know, breathing process. But it's like, okay, when I think of like metalcore, I think of like Bullet for My Valentine or Killswitch Engage or Parkway Drive. It's like the only cool metalcore band that I can think of off the top of my head would be like Shadows Fall. But like, we're like not even in that. It's not really what we're doing.
To me, you guys are like more of a like Swedish mellow death kind of band. Although the one metal, like, I don't know if I'll get like killed for calling this band metalcore, but I'm like, I came up in like the, you know, I don't know, I think you'd call it technically the second wave, which was like bands like Killswitch and Shadows Fall and stuff.
Yeah.
But Darkest Hour, you guys remind me of a lot.
Yeah.
In that sense, because they're not, the Darkest Hour doesn't rely on like breakdowns or anything like that. They're just the melodic riffs and the fast.
And that's, we've never had like, a couple of the older songs have kind of breakdowny parts. They're like some syncopation stuff, but there's never been like a breakdown in a Greywalker song. Like in a very like, you know, like Unearth style sort of like
in the hardcore sense.
Yeah, that's never, which man, Unearth, killer band. Jesus Christ.
I saw the Endless EP release show in a VFW hall, and it was madness.
I believe it.
Because like our band is initially from Connecticut, where I grew up, and then I moved here and kind of remade it in a sense. So the scene that I was like kind of coming up in before I was like really a serious like musician was all bands like that, like Unearth and Killswitch. I was at the Fixation on the Darkness video shoot. It was at this club called Fat Cats, and it was completely sold out. Me and my friend just happened to like score tickets like the day of, like before it sold out. And I remember like getting out of school and driving up to, because I mean, Springfield is only like 20 minutes away from where I grew up, and just getting to see like bands like that, but in their like early days, you know, like when they were still kind of grinding in the underground, it's so cool to see like just where they've taken the genres of music and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like Killswitch was always the talk of the town or the scene back then, because they were like, yo, they just signed to Roadrunner Records and like they're gonna be here. And then like a year later, they were the biggest metalcore band on earth.
Uh-huh.
They're still probably top 5 at least.
Oh, easily.
Top 3 maybe. In terms of, you know, popularity. I think Bring Me the Horizon's probably the tip top, but I don't know if you'd really call them metalcore anymore.
I don't,
because they're different.
Yeah,
like that era of metalcore versus like what came after, which kind of started with Under Oath and what was that album?
Well, they had their own
the Changing of Times.
Oh, okay.
That was when they started, like, because
the old Under Oath, right?
Yeah, well, that was they were like on the borderline of like death metal. Their first Cries from the Past EP, but when I completely spaced on the album name that I just said.
Changing of Times.
Changing of Times. When that album came out, that to me is like what changed metalcore from like the more Swedish death metal influence to what it is now, which is like more melodic, more singy chorus.
All the like radio pop sort of.
Yeah.
The reliability again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they brought all that in for sure.
Absolutely. Back then, like everything was metalcore before all the subgenres started getting split up. Because now, like people go back and listen to stuff like one of my favorite bands ever is Blood Has Been Shed, which was Howard Jones's band before he joined Killswitch. They were just like a local Connecticut band, but they were signed like to Ferret. They'd been, you know, they have like national recognition. They just weren't as big as Killswitch was. And when you listen to them now, most people would probably call them a deathcore band, but at the time, deathcore didn't exist. Everything that was like screaming and breakdowns was all just considered pretty much metalcore.
Yeah.
Unless you were like a straight up like hardcore band. If you were just nothing but beatdowns or like the kind of Youth Crew style hardcore with more chanty vocals and stuff like that, like Bane.
Yeah, there wasn't as much crossover, and I think that's why a lot of that stuff blew up, because it was like, you can do this?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like metal is such a young genre of music in the way that we know it. I mean, you can go back maybe 50 or 60 years if you want to like dig into like the origins, like one of those like nerdy documentaries, which are cool. No beef.
I do that all the time.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But like for like extreme heavy metal, you know what I mean? Like we're starting in the 80s with the extreme stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, so from 1980, like extreme metal has been around pretty much as long as we have. Yeah. In a lot of ways.
I don't even know if I'd go back to even the earth. Like I feel like it was like mid and late 80s when it was really like a thing.
Well, sure. I think like, you know, like if you take like I think, you know, like your Slayers and your Metallicas and your Exoduses and, you know, all that, those bands that were coming up in the early mid 80s, getting real big. They were the ones that really like, at least on a popular level, like they were big enough to be playing like huge places. So I'm sure there were a lot of underground bands too that like influenced them to get to that next level, right?
Yeah.
And but it's so funny where it's like we're only talking about like, you know, like a 30, 40 year period, and music's been around for thousands of years.
Right.
So of course it's going to change so much. It's just we need to like calm down on the subgenre things. We already have 5 million subgenres in a 40-year period. What's going to happen in the next 2 decades?
Right.
How are we going to be able to keep up
Every
with all
band is going to be their own genre pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like, or if it keeps kind of going like that, I guess. But the thing is, like, and I see so many kids like argue over what is classified as what genre. Like, even on, some of our videos where like I'll read comments and people are like, this isn't black and go listen to this. That's black and it's like, well, okay, but why is like this? What are the indicators here? Because there's only so many things you can put into music,
sure,
before it's not music anymore.
Yeah, if you can take an entire, like, there's no way to just take an entire subgenre of music and like associate it with like one song.
Yeah,
like, I feel like a genre should be able to be flexible and have a lot of different potentials.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it shouldn't be its own genre if it's so like niche.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, that's what I kind of like what I said before. Like, we never noticed that we were a part of any genre. Like, to us, we're just playing what we want to play, and like, we listened at the time to like black metal and listened to a lot of death metal. So we were like, one day it was like a light bulb. We wrote a song that had like some orchestra stuff on it, and we started changing kind of the chord progressions from the more melodic metalcore stuff to more minor chord tremolo stuff. And I was like, whoa, this sounds really cool. Let's keep writing songs like this.
Yeah.
And now in 2021, it's like its own kind of subgenre where it's blackened deathcore.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that like why do we need to put all of these labels on things and be like, I'm a black and deathcore guy. Like, right. I'm a stoner doom guy. I'm like a progressive power metal guy. Like, like,
I guess it does help.
I guess, I mean,
it gives, if someone tells me something like that, I can like, okay, I got an idea of like the type of bands you listen to, I guess.
Yeah.
So that way it's helpful. It's just like the argument over who belongs in this subgenre or this subgenre or this one. Like, I read a whole argument thread about who was the first deathcore band, and some people would argue that there's this band from California called Antagony, I think they were called, and people, and I remember commenting once, like, you have to understand, like, at that time, and you're talking like late 90s, maybe early 2000s, when like just that was when Antagony was around, but just the kind of the building blocks to the deathcore genre kind of started around.
I think of like,
but it depends on where you're from, because the internet wasn't like a huge thing then. And of course, in 2021, it's like, what do you mean we didn't have internet in every aspect of our lives? Like, but back in that time, like, it really wasn't like you didn't have internet on your phone. You couldn't
like
just
there was
you couldn't
internet,
just go on like YouTube and type in like, death metal and have 100 different options in front of you.
Not when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Like, I think like when I think about, like, I had like buddies that would like bring in like burned CDs of stuff that they got from like some weird forum. And like, when I'm thinking about, like, I think like one of the first bands that I remember really that I would be like, oh, this was like deathcore, would have been like Decapitated.
Right. So now there are death metal purists that would just slap you right in the mouth for how dare you call Decapitated deathcore?
But I mean, like,
but they were really like, they had that on the album Nihility.
Yeah.
That triggered bass drum. Like, that was the first time I'd ever heard that.
Yeah, that's the first time like hearing is something like that. And at the time, I'm like, wasn't like, oh, this is deathcore. That didn't exist.
Right.
But like, if you think about like the blueprints of it, that's when like me talking about before, when I'm thinking about like death metal bands that just had groove.
Yeah.
Like Dying Fetus, Decapitated. Like, that's so like when I started hearing new bands doing this, I'm like, the only thing that seems really different about this is like one band can sell a shirt at Hot Topic and the other can't. So is that what this is? Is this like a like it's just marketable enough to get like this like cute little catchy name?
So just for my point a second ago, like, I feel like people, it would have depended at the time on the region that you're from, like, because you didn't have the internet to link everything. So to me, like, the first deathcore sounding band that I ever heard was probably the Red Chord.
Okay.
And I like, because again, another Massachusetts band, like we used to play hall shows with them and shit. Like, it's crazy just how big metal is now. But anyways, like, hold on, I'm like, my brain is like a million different directions.
Deathcore, first band, Red Chord.
Yes, but the question you had, it was like after the last thing that you said.
I have no idea. We were talking about just like, I was just talking about Decapitated and Dying Fetus and like that being like my introduction based off of like, you know, a heist. Like, but that wasn't even like an introduction to anything. That was just like, yo, check out this CD. And like, that's the first time I remember hearing like those kinds of grooves, especially like the Decapitated stuff, like those cool, like syncopated things and stuff. Like I've never heard anything quite like this. Like it's familiar, but it's different in its own way.
So you're wondering like what defines like deathcore in comparison to something like that.
And then like, you know, we're talking about like the bands that are marketable. Like it seems like, you know, like you're not going to see a Dying Fetus or like a Decapitated shirt like at the mall. But you were seeing like Suicide Silent shirts and Bring Me the Horizon. It's okay, well, what's the difference? It's like, so okay, one's a group of like hairy, ugly dudes and the other's like a bunch of like, you know, cute teenagers in skinny jeans. But if you close your eyes and listen to these are very comparable sounds.
Similar,
Right.
So I think and this is kind of what made Suicide Silence really blow up. And, you know, that was like the time that we were really starting to get kind of on the national level or whatever. Suicide Silence took death metal and made it in a much neater and more listenable package. So it's reliable. Yeah. It's really just down to simplified song structures without compromising like the heaviness or the technicality. It's really the same thing that Slipknot did. It's just in a different time, a different era.
Yeah.
And like there's so many kids like they hate Slipknot because they look at it as like, you know, novelty at this point in time. But when they came out, that was really what they did was they took, because nu metal at that time had completely crushed the momentum of death metal. In the early 90s, death metal was really like getting a hard look from big labels like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and stuff like. All of them were either signed by bigger labels than you would imagine signing a death metal band, or were at least being like courted by them. Yeah, because they looked at it as the next thing after, you know, the hair metal died out.
Put it this way, it's like we're the same age. Yeah. We're talking about not having access to the internet or anything like that. We're 12, 13, 14 years old. We know who Cannibal Corpse is. Yeah. We know who Deicide is at that age. Yeah. And the only way that a 13-year-old with no internet access really knows about Cannibal Corpse is because they're probably a pretty big fucking band.
Yeah. And they were like,
you know, like,
I didn't even really realize this until I got like much older and kind of started really studying how the music industry works. And like, you know, nu metal kind of came along and showed, because like I said before, you know, labels like music, it's very much a business to the people other than the artists, you know, that are involved in it. So nu metal came along and it was still like roughly the same demographic, but it was they could market it to way more people were interested in it because it was easier to listen to. And then Slipknot came out and just buried it by implementing death metal. A lot of people forget that like the core members of Slipknot came from death metal bands. They weren't like in, you know, like they weren't always just in nu metal bands and just started playing that, you know, or the same with like Ryan from Mudvayne, the bass player. He's like well documented, like Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, like that's most of the shit he listens to. And like, I don't understand why, again, it's more like genre snob stuff. Like you hate Slipknot because in comparison to bands now, yes, there's tons of bands that are way heavier than Slipknot is, than anything Slipknot ever made probably. But they basically blew the door open for things like deathcore to exist because it redirected the metal genre back to heavy, back to extreme, because where it was going, like, and now it's kind of funny, it's like full circle, like everyone loves Limp Bizkit again, but for a good like 15 years, like Limp Bizkit was the corniest thing on earth to everybody. Yeah. You know? And now all of a sudden, now that it's like we're out of the woods and no one gives a shit what people think about people's personal music choices anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's okay to admit, like, you know what? I liked $3 Billy All. Like,
yeah.
I had that album. Like everyone did.
Those were fun records.
They sure were.
That's the thing. Is like it can't be all serious all the time, which is what makes it really hard sometimes for me to be in a band. Granted, with Grey Walker, we goof off a good bit, and like we're not like on paper a very like serious looking band.
Yeah.
You motherfuckers are very, very much, you know, rooted in an aesthetic that I think is appropriate for you guys. Like I don't want to hear that shit that you're doing and see you being goofy on stage.
Neither do I. You know, like it should be, at least in terms of my like philosophy on it or whatever. Like, I mean, obviously we don't just walk around in all black clothing. Oh, I have all black on now. Don't. Okay, listen. This was a mistake with my wardrobe. Can we get me a new shirt here, guys? Thank you. Yeah, they'll get me in another color.
Yeah.
Like we're not like doom and gloom people like
Totally.
as we walk around in public, but like what our music is like it's dark subject matter.
Yeah.
So like if we came out in like Speedos and had balloons and shit everywhere, like it would kind of, what's the point of playing dark music then? Like we should just play something a little different.
And I think that's the thing that like I don't know if maybe people realize this later, but like Limp Bizkit was never really meant to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So I don't know why people started like treating them in this way where it's like you had to observe them through the same lens that you would observe like a Slipknot or a heavier band. Like that they were supposed to be it was a party. It was always supposed to be a fun party. And
Absolutely.
now it's just like it was always kind of silly. I mean, they got popular off of a ridiculous George Michael cover, right? It's like, why
Still
do you
my
think
least favorite
weird?
Limp Bizkit song.
Yeah. Why do you think it's funny or weird now that like Fred Durst has a silly outfit on and is trolling a bit? Like it's always been kind of a joke.
I think it's fucking
It's
brilliant.
awesome. It's awesome. But
I'm on board with Limp Bizkit's new vibes.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, but I think that like people are just very surface level. That's really what it comes down to. And I think that, you know, when Slipknot was a thing, like there was bands at the time. Like I owned, you know, Dying Fetus CDs and Cannibal Corpse CDs and DSI. Like all this stuff was around before I heard Slipknot. And I was like, okay, this isn't the heaviest thing I've ever heard, but this is still pretty fucking cool.
It's because they took they took death metal and they put it in a neat little package that anyone who liked remotely aggressive music could listen to and enjoy.
Sure.
And they had really relatable lyrics for that generation.
Oh yeah, I was
really,
fucking, you know,
I was the angriest
15
teenager.
years old.
Fuck yeah, like
yeah.
I was very much like the stereotypical like fuck you mom like type of teenager.
Totally.
I was an asshole when I was a kid.
Totally.
But that music, like that was the backdrop to like how everything that I felt when I was that age, you know?
Yeah, and I think that maybe, you know, I had some older friends that never like really gave it a chance or gave much of a shit because it was Slipknot. And I remember like when Iowa came out, I'm like, yo, listen to this record. It is fucking, it's Slipknot.
It started like they made blast beats, like people's moms knew what a blast beat was because of that record, you know? Like, and that's like people get so snobby about like genres and you know, oh well, it's Slipknot. Like it's the cool. The people think that it's cool to like not like something when really it's the complete opposite. Like people are like it makes me cooler because I don't like what everyone else likes. Like my musical palette is so refined that I came out of the womb with a Cannibal Corpse shirt on. I've never listened to Korn or any of that nonsense. Like it's you know, it's like okay, sure thing, bud. You know?
Yeah.
Like you're not that cool.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing too. Just like keeping in mind where it's like when Slipknot came out for us, we were barely teenagers, you know, and like we're just it's like it's the whole package. It's like, okay, this is accessible, it's heavy, they look cool, the songs are angry, fuck it all, fuck this world, fuck everything that you stand for.
Right. I would have tattooed that on my fucking forehead.
Don't give a shit. Don't ever judge me. I'll never forget.
Right. That's like, I wanted that to be my first tattoo, and I'm like, I love Slipknot to death.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I didn't get that tattoo though, because that would have been a real hard one to explain to some people.
I'm pretty sure that there was like, a point in time in my life when I also would have gotten a Slipknot tattoo if I would have been given the ability.
How do you feel about band tattoos? Like when people get logos.
I have several band tattoos.
Do you?
Yeah.
What do you got?
I have a Portishead tattoo. I have a Descendants tattoo and a Glassjaw tattoo.
Ooh, Glassjaw's my jam. So it's so weird. Like,
I always said that my first tattoo was going to be Eddie. I wanted to get an Iron Maiden Eddie tattoo. I still to this day do not have one.
Right.
I have a lot of other
get
bullshit
it. What
tattoos.
What are you waiting for?
I don't know.
Get an Eddie like right on the hand or something.
I'm not sure.
That's a respectable tattoo in the metal community.
I think that you got to figure out like what Eddie am I going to get.
That's true. There have been a lot.
I'm thinking like Mummy Power Slave era Eddie.
That would make a solid tattoo.
Probably the one I'm going to go for.
I feel like Iron Maiden is in that echelon where like nobody is going to judge you for having an Iron Maiden tattoo.
Well, I mean, I don't give a shit.
Like they would judge you if you had a new metal tattoo or like.
I'd get a Korn tattoo. I'm just going to get a backwards R.
Yeah, go for it. I've wanted I remember when I was a teenager, like I used to draw all over myself because I always envisioned that I would have tattoos. Like, and I'm,
it happened.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But I wanted like every band's like logo. I was just like, I'm gonna get a sleeve. It's just like Korn and Mudvayne and Rammstein and Limp Bizkit. And I think back on it now, like, man, that would have looked like shit if I had committed to that at that age. I'm glad that they don't let you get a tattoo under the age of 18.
Sure.
And I'm glad that I listened to my mom and didn't get one until I turned 18.
Thanks, Mom.
Right.
That's so funny. So with the breathing process right now, you've been putting out some singles. You got a record coming out.
Mm.
I guess let's promo the current a bit. Let's get out of our teenage daydream. And
we can talk about that forever.
Let's talk business a bit.
Right on.
So what's going on?
So we have a new album called Labyrinthian that comes out October 8th on Unique Leader Records. It will be available everywhere. There's still pre-orders. I think that the vinyl variant is getting really low in terms of availability. Like I think they pressed like 1,000 of them and there's like 100 left, something like that. And then I don't know if I'm pretty sure if they sell out, then we'll just do a different color variant or something like that. So it's funny because like every band, vinyl is really hot right now. It's a hot commodity to sell because it's cool. It's nostalgic. And I love like the big gatefold artwork of like bands' albums. I don't think I have a record player in my house, but we have like a bunch of vinyls just because it's cool to look at sometimes. And I mean, if I ever got one, they do function as listening things. But like every other band on Unique Leader has like 4 or 5 like crazy color variant vinyls. And we don't, not because they don't like us, but because our album is too long. So we had to we had
double LP.
We had to print it as a double. And it's only long by like 8 minutes, but it was either cut like we would have to cut 2 songs to get it under the length. So it would have been an 8-song album if we wanted to do like multiple color variants.
That's why so many like old school albums, like if you listen to like the old like Ride the Lightning or fucking Rain and Blood, it's like they're short albums because they were all made for the vinyl format, They
didn't have a choice.
Yeah. I still, to this day, I don't think that I've most albums that I do a vinyl release for, so I keep that in mind. Like when we're like writing, like this is enough for. 40 minutes of music is pretty solid,
right?
That's a lot of music.
Absolutely. I think our album is like 48 or something like that. Like I said, we literally missed it by like 8 minutes. But then we don't have any song that's 8 minutes to make up the space. So it's like either we'd have to cut 2.
Well, that's cool. So is it 4 sides then? You guys split it up onto 4 sides?
Yes.
Cool. Well, it's probably, if that's the case, it's probably going to sound pretty fucking good because you don't want to squeeze too much music, especially with something that's as dynamic as the music that you guys do because there's so much going on.
I learned that with this record whenever Dave Attero produced it. He does like cattle decapitation and stuff like that. He's from Colorado. He did our second album too, actually, but he pointed out that the more songs that you put on a side, it lessens the audio quality or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea because we've never printed vinyl before.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, well, shit, I guess we're going to have to not have pretty colors and just go with a double LP.
Yeah.
But they did manage to give us this cool, like, lava-looking color variant, which I like a lot. So, yeah, that comes out October 8th. We just released another single this past Friday. That's on, like, YouTube and stuff and on digital streaming services. I almost said surfaces. And then we have one more music video that comes out September 14th, I want to say.
Cool.
13th or 14th, one of those 2 days.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this is what happened with the first 2 music videos that we shot that we've released so far. We filmed both of them in like the same days. And we basically, the guy who, Eric DiCarlo, the guy who shot both of them, he's shooting the one that we're doing next month also. He had to basically film us in a day and then edit it in a matter of hours. And it was released like the day after. Really? Yeah, just because his schedule's like super hectic. So like we have to, if we don't get in this day, it's going to be like months and months before we're able to do it again. Okay. And being on like a label with like their release schedule, it's like this song has to come out on this day. Got it. There's no wiggle room. It can't come out the day after or the day before. This is the day. Yeah. So so the one we're about to shoot, like we're going to New Jersey to shoot it, and then it comes out like 2 days later. And it's really stressful to do it that way. That's wild to me. He manages to do it though. Like both of those videos he edited in like a few hours. Cool. And they both look like great. And I'm excited to see what the next one looks like. Because we're trying to do some weird stuff with it, I guess. I can't reveal too much about it. Yeah, don't. We wanna don't spoil it. Just know that it's in video format. Oh, nice. And there's music on it. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's so yeah, we got that. We have a show at Preserving Underground on September 26th with Signs of the Swarm and Worm Shepherd, who are also on Unique Leader Records, both of those bands. So we're just, having a fun day for that, I guess. Tickets available online. Yeah. All that fun stuff, right? Yeah. So, I guess there's not too much else to really talk about in regards with the band. I would say if you're into Chaos, I would go check it out. I think it's pretty tight. If you like Evil, I think that you want to piss off your mom and dad. Yeah, we're for you. I love watching you guys play live because there's like so much that's going on, and it's really rad now because you have like a full lineup, and it's cool to see like everybody executing all of the layers. Cause like you really got to like zone in, because like it's really easy to kind of just be like, okay, like there's like just this, again, like a wall of chaos. But like if you like get through it, you're like looking in and like, holy shit, okay, like there's that really cool little guitar nuance thing there, and that keyboard part's really cool, and all this little nuanced drum stuff that's going on. It's like going 1,000 miles a minute. Yeah. But if you can like take it in, it's really cool. I always recommend come see us when you're really stoned. Okay. it will clear up a lot of that for you. No, we're very much like, we have always strived to be a live band, like a band that you have to kind of see to get. And I think that's how most metal should be. Absolutely. That's how I describe, because I mean, every one of us has like non-metal friends that know nothing about metal or metal bands, metal. They don't know the subgenres that make them sound cool, that they know about them. Yeah. So I always explain to them, like, you have to go to a concert and see it, like experience that kind of energy transfer that occurs at metal concerts, because it's unique to that genre. Because I listen to nearly every genre of music and actually am a fan of someone in almost every genre except country. I still can't do country music. Doesn't do anything for me. I've tried. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm sorry if you have people that like country and stuff. I appreciate the talent it takes to make, but I never listened to it and I'm like, man, yeah, that's exactly how I feel, you know? Anyways, I explained to my non-metal friends that if you go see it, you'll understand it. You'll understand it a lot more. And I've taken like my friends that are not into even music really, let alone metal, to like concerts, and then like they're like, oh, okay, like it's a place to let out like negativity, your negative energy. That's why people mosh. That's why people hit each other. And then it's like when you leave, you feel like it's like it has like a sobering effect to it. Like you feel like you just let all of that go. Yeah. And I feel like that's what it's like for us as the artists as well, like the live performance aspect of it. You know, that's how I feel like when I'm done playing. I mean, I feel like an old man now. When I'm done playing, I have to go stretch. I have to go take like 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. And
it doesn't get any easier.
Not at all. You know, I have to have a whole routine before I go on to play now. But yeah, like just live, like we try to just swallow the audience with atmosphere. That's like what we've always been about, I guess. And
yeah, you're very successful.
That's hard to experience, like listening to it on your phone or in a car or something like that. You know?
Totally.
And it's it's really complicated for us to do because we have so many moving parts in our setup. And even then, back at the beginning of our conversation, we have it really simplified for even a dumb sound guy. And some still don't understand.
Sure,
I guess,
it's still a lot. Yeah. It's still a lot. You know?
We also experienced at the festival yesterday, like what happens when any of us gets even slightly off from our click track.
Oh no!
Is that everything turns into a mess?
Yeah,
and it's like kind of the risk you run when you do stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Like it was if we got one beat off and on a part that's just guitar. And now, then when the drums came back in, the backing track is off by a beat. So when we change chords, the big ambient pad sounds that are constantly going throughout everything are all like one note off. And we just kind of recovered by just pretending like that's how it's supposed to be, you know?
Yeah.
It really wasn't, though. Like we were all just in our own world, and that would have sounded like how you describe us as chaos. If you saw us last night, that's the kind of genre. That's our new subgenre where you program everything to a metronome and then ignore it. That's I'm starting my own wave with that. I'm going to trademark it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like seriously, like all the love in the world to you guys. I always enjoy getting to play with you guys. It's
Likewise.
Nice that I'm in like a band that makes sense to play with you. You know, like, back in the day when we met, I was just rolling around on the floor and rapping. But hey, it's still.
I'll never forget that. What was that place called?
Giorgio's
Pizzeria, I believe it was.
And Banquet Hall.
Banquet Hall.
They're stretching it on the Banquet Hall thing.
It definitely had Banquet Hall vibes.
It was a room.
Yeah, it was a room. It had a carpet. I remember. Low ceiling, and I feel like there was a ceiling fan in the room where there was people trying to mosh.
Sure.
But yeah, that was where we met. I remember we played a show, and I was like, "Whoa, this guy raps, cool!" And then we've been friends ever since.
There we are. Here we are, all these years later, still doing the damn thing.
Yeah. It wasn't until like not even that long ago that I even knew that you sang like metal. Also, like I probably because I think I moved here in like 2012 or 2013 or something like that. It was only like a year or two after that, I think, that I had heard of like, because I remembered you, because I remembered your name, obviously, and it was like when I saw the Grey Walker like on social media, I was like, who's this band from Pittsburgh? Why does this name look so familiar?
Yeah, it was me.
Whoa! And then you're still do the Sykes stuff, right?
Yeah. So
Sykes and the New Violence.
Yes, but we've changed the band name to Normal Creatures.
Ah, okay.
Yes,
that's a cool name.
So, and we are. It's because it's like it's gone way past it just like being me rapping with a backing band. Like we actually write songs together now, and it's more of like a full band thing. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I always appreciate hip hop that performs live with instruments.
Yeah.
Because it sounds just really good. And it's got that kind of nostalgic 90s vibe to it.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't sound like 90s hip hop.
Totally.
Like just just featuring live instruments versus like a DJ is always cool
yeah.
to
It
me.
works for what we're doing, you know. Like
Yeah.
I've always had like I came from like a rock background.
Mhm.
I like loud things. That's why I was like rolling around on a floor to backtracks. I just wanted to be in a band.
Right.
But I eventually found the band. So here we are. I no longer roll around on the floor, much like you. I got to stretch and do things before shows. Not getting
yeah.
any younger.
Absolutely.
But here we are. So with all that being said, I'd say let's just pull the plug on this chat. We've been chatting for about an hour, and that's about all people need to deal with, to be
I'm
honest.
into it.
But
I like your style.
thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I'm going to do an outro, and then that'll be it. And that is all, folks. Thanks so much for being here. One more time. Jordan.
Oh, I was watching you do your outro on the screen.
Okay.
It was
Just
beautiful.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'll be back again next week with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sykes. Start the Beat 2021. Whoop, whoop. Thanks for listening. And we did it. That's a podcast.
All right.
It happened.
Cool, man. I like this place.
Hey, thanks for coming by.